Hello everybody, this is not a review for the Power Axe, but more so a feedback for its current status. I'm gonna be honest right now, it's not very good, and I'll explain to it in details. First, let's take a look at its moveset. This is the light chain, and this is the heavy chain. Now what's unique about the Power Axe is that you can chain the heavy any given time in the light chain and it will be the same. So for example, if I do a light into a heavy, it'll look like that, and you will be able to access other light attacks out of the heavy. So for example, if I do a heavy in a light, it will be able to access the final hit of the Power Axe. This is just, it's an okay mechanic, I guess, but it doesn't really offer much because unlike most melee weapons, the Power Axe light attacks don't really get more damage unless you have... Well, it doesn't get more damage the longer you go in combo, it doesn't really matter. I'll show you here. So, each of our light attack on this bulwark is only doing 20.35 damage. And if I keep going, you'll see that only the third attack does more damage. I think it does like 150 the base damage, which is pretty good, I think. And the fourth attack will do essentially 200% because you're doing 2 hits. It's alright. I don't think it's like super depthful. It doesn't have a lot of depth to it, but it is something you can use. But because the nature of light attacks in this game is that they don't really create a lot of priority for you, especially when enemies are attacking. So it's kind of difficult to leverage on just using light attacks. Plus the damage of this is really not that great, considering it's still only doing 100% damage compared to everything else. And another problem I have is, take a look at this. This is the distance travel with the heavy attack, and this is the light attack. Right? It doesn't look like it's too bad. It looks like the heavy attack has a better momentum, but if I have the lock on here, my character is going to lock onto this warrior. Look at how much further I travel when I'm in range of an enemy. But the heavy attack, I don't have that. I don't have that travel distance. And this is going to be a problem because I'm going to show you right here. If I want to use my heavy attack against a warrior, which you shouldn't, and I'll explain why, it's going to end up looking like this. Another problem, in addition to that, is the damage. This is, again, my light attack damage, and this is my heavy attack damage. You'll notice I'm only doing roughly 50% of my light attack damage per swing, which is accurate because in the game file, each of those attacks only does 50 damage. So if we pair that with the issue I mentioned earlier, how the heavy attack sometimes just doesn't connect with the light attack, it's a very suboptimal attack to be using. Not only do you have the problem of not hitting your target after a light attack, you also do very little damage. If I just do 2 light attacks, I'm doing as much damage as the heavy attack or light into heavy combo. But I have a much lower, I actually have no chance of missing because this is always going to true combo. So that's a problem there. And you might be saying, oh okay, but what if I want to do, what if the heavy attack is relegated to only be used on gaunts or minoris enemies? Because of how short the Power Axe is and how little damage it does, it's not doing a very good job leveraging that 10 cleave on the heavy attack. Other weapons will have a much better time dealing with the minoris horde like this. Now what if we were to use the unique attack, power step? Maybe that'll help. Now we're getting somewhere, but I don't know, it's not exactly it's not my I wouldn't be using that in a horde. Because if you're using, let's say you're using a fancy weapon, you're already going to be spamming your parry attack, your parry to kill the minoris enemies. There is no reason to go for power step. Plus power step is not that great for horde clear anywhere. It's, in fact, that's, why don't we start talking about power step. Power step is something you get access to once you successfully parry an enemy. It's the unique mechanic to the power axe. And what you should be doing with this thing is you want to parry, attack, and then gun strike. This way every single one of your attack will be buffed by the buffed by the parry bonus. And you will be able to take down enemies really quickly with this combo. But the biggest thing right now with this thing is it has no, it doesn't work with block weapons. You cannot access this attack with block weapons, meaning that the power axe is pretty much dead if you're using the block version of it, because like I've said earlier, the light attacks, which is just a regular light attack, it doesn't do a lot more damage than the other weapons. So the damage is really bad there. You don't have access to a very good heavy attack, because heavy attacks only do like 50% more or 50% base damage. So you're not going to be using that. So what the hell are you supposed to do with a block weapon? Even though they fixed the block weapons explosion stagger from explosion, you're still not going to be using this as with a block weapon. There is no mechanic there, and numerically speaking, it's bad. So really, what are you supposed to do if you have a block weapon? Nothing. And since you have no access to power step, that's even worse. Now, if we do have access to a power step there, then for block weapons, maybe it'll be a little better. But it's still only doing like double damage, I think. You know what? Let me check the damage of this thing real quick. Because that seems kind of low for an attack that has... That seems kind of low for an attack when parry bonus is active. Okay, how much damage do I get if I... Oh! Wow. Huh. I only do 10 damage? If the enemy doesn't have... Oh, wow, okay. Okay, that changes everything. Wow. So if the enemy doesn't have parry bonus, I'm only doing 10 damage on power step. Does more damage to gaunts, doesn't kill them instantly though. Okay, that's weird. I'm not sure what's going on there, but it does way less damage than it's supposed to. See, the thing is, parry bonus is supposed to give you like a 50% bonus on your attacks, any range attacks and melee attacks, but for some weird reason, it doesn't work. It's way lower than it's supposed to be when the enemy isn't affected by a parry bonus. Okay, that's kind of strange. Anyway, I think there's some key things for this weapon that's lacking. So first of all, I think the heavy attack momentum needs to be increased to match the light attacks, because the attack is only doing half the damage, and it's a very long attack with it's a staggered attack with 2 parts, and you're only doing half damage, half the light attack damage for each of those attacks. And because the power axe itself is also very short, it needs to have a better form of momentum. And even though you have 10 cleaves on each of the attacks, so you could theoretically use it against, you can theoretically use it to stagger a horde. Because of this lack of momentum and the lack of length on the axe, it's kind of difficult to really leverage this. And the heavy attack damage is questionable. First issue is that, like I've mentioned, the attack doesn't have a very good reach. And then it's staggered, so if you have such low damage on it, you can't really only use it against minoris enemies, and not even killing them, just kind of knocking them around. On the one hand, I don't really mind heavy attacks having a lower damage. Like, it's a switch up, right? Most weapons you want to do the heavy attack for more damage, but I don't really think that has to be the way all the time. But in conjunction with the reach, with the poor reach and the staggered nature of the attack, this damage is just buns. It's not good at all. And I guess if they really want to enforce the point that this weapon is a better single target weapon, then they will have to buff the light attack damage modifiers more. Like, sure, the third attack has like 150%, I think, damage modifier, but the second attack doesn't have anything, and the fourth attack technically has 200%, but it's staggered. So unless it's a guaranteed true combo for most enemies, it's not gonna enforce that point where you want the light damage to be the damage dealer. And if they want to make sure this weapon stands out more as a single target dealer, then yeah, make the light attacks do more damage. Make it so, I don't know, maybe they start with 150% and go all the way up to like 300%. I think that'd be interesting. Make it like the light attack is your heavy attack in comparison to other weapons. And as for power step, yeah, I was gonna say I don't mind the damage being mediocre, but that damage was with parry bonus. I didn't realize this earlier, but that's buns, dude. 45 damage on a parry bonus enemy, but it's only doing like a quarter of that, doing a fourth of that. It's only doing like a fourth of the damage of power step if your enemy is not affected by the parry bonus. That's buns. And considering you can only access this attack with a perfect parry, no, that attack needs to be way stronger, I think. Even though in this game parry is already so powerful, I don't think it should have been made such that it does 0 damage to an enemy when he's not affected by the parry bonus. And I think another thing a power step needs to have is allowing you to change the direction of the attack. You can't change the direction to be facing another enemy, because this backstep is pretty cool. But if you can't change the direction of it, it kind of limits its use to only fighting the enemy that you're facing. Like, what if I'm in a situation where there's a lot of enemies, and that happens a lot, right? You're never gonna be fighting a single warrior in an open area like this. What if you're fighting multiple enemies and you want to use your power step to hit other things? I think we should be able to change our manually target who we want to hit. And another thing I want to mention is the gun strike perk. There's a perk that gives it 20% gun strike damage when you're in power stance. It's kind of a scam. Or no, it's not a scam. It does exactly what it does. But the issue is, if you gun strike too quickly before your character enters power step stance, you get nothing. You don't get any bonus. That is a design oversight. And I think it should be worked. It should be reworked to that, such that instead of gun strike damage when you're in power step stance, it should be gun strike. The next gun strike damage after a successful parry will do 20% more damage. That way it's far more consistent. It just makes more sense this way, and it also gives you more utility. Sometimes you want to pocket that gun strike instead. Oh, another thing is if you do the optimal combo, which is power step followed by a gun strike, you don't get any benefit from this perk. And so if it's made so that the next gun strike will do 20% more damage, then you can do this combo and benefit from the damage bonus. So yeah, serious oversight. Could be improved. And I've been saying this, I guess I've been alluding to this a while, but the very last issue is that please make this weapon work with block weapons. I know it's probably not going to improve it that much if nothing else changes, but seriously, having a third of your weapon just straight up not work with a new weapon, rather its unique mechanic has no interaction with a third of the weapon, no, that's not good. That's just amateur hour, honestly. But anyway, that's my thought on the power axe. It's buns, but it can be good, just not now.